There is an old Jewish folk saying, "From Moses to Moses, there was none like Moses." The second Moses in this saying is Moses ben Maimon, or Maimonides for short, generally considered the most important Jewish philosopher of the Middle Ages, and perhaps of all time. He drew deeply from Jewish and Arab religious traditions, and also from the rationalism of the Greek and Roman philosophers. His religious philosophy anticipated Western thought of the modern period, pointing toward later scholars like Spinoza. He was multilingual, writing religious works in both Hebrew and philosophical and medical works in Arabic. Maimonides was born in Cordoba, Spain, in 1138. At that time it was a Muslim city, and it was the center of European civilized world. Known for its hundreds of public baths, mosques, synagogues, and among its 70 libraries was the best in Europe. It had a legacy of Jewish learning and culture, with Jewish scholars like Judah Halevi and even Gabriel. Today, Cordoba is a bustling city filled with tourists, celebrating its Jewish and Arab heritage. But there are almost no Jews or Arabs left there. From 711 to 1031, Cordoba was the capital of the Umayyad Arab rule of Spain and North Africa. As an imperial capital, it built the beautiful Great Mosque of Cordoba, one of the largest in the world. When Maimonides lived there, it was the end of the religious and cultural experiment that is known today as a coexistencia, meaning the harmonious living side by side of Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Maimonides grew up in the complexity of Andalusian cultural life, where Jews lived in a predominantly Arab world, and he saw no conflict between Jewish and being Arab culturally and linguistically. He did his early studies under the influence of Arab scholarship and rationalism. That can be seen here in the engineering and refined geometric patterns of design of the Great Mosque. In 1148, when Maimonides was only 10 years old, the rigidly religious Almohads invaded Cordoba, and the tolerance and the acceptance of the Jewish minority began to change to persecution. So the Great Mosque of Cordoba is a World Heritage Site today, and the Mihrab on the eastern wall facing Mecca continues to marvel tourists as it attracted worshippers and believers for centuries. Sometime in the early 1160, the family left Cordoba, and they would have walked down a street like this to the ancient bridge leading to the south into Morocco. Maimonides and his family would have walked across this bridge, originally built by the Romans and repeatedly restored, and as you can see, it's still in use today. They traveled across the Straits of Gibraltar and the fertile landscape of northern Morocco to the fabled city of Fez. They had moved from the great city of Spain to the great city of Morocco and its Islamic culture. The family probably came to Fez because it had a large Spanish Jewish community. This is the Slat al-Fassiyine Synagogue, the oldest in Fez, dating to the 1200s or maybe 1300s, and it gives us an idea of the kind of synagogue Maimonides might have attended. The Jewish cemetery of Fez also connects us to the medieval history of Maimonides. Tzaddiks, or holy people, are buried there, including this tomb of Soulika, a young woman Jewish martyr who is the most important tzaddik in Morocco today. Her tomb is blackened from the candles that people have lighted, asking for her assistance in their lives. Maimonides completed his education in medicine. He seems to have attended and perhaps taught at the most important center of learning in Fez, the al-Fassiyine Mosque, considered to be the oldest center of higher learning in the world. Today you can walk along the narrow passageways of the market that follow paths that are centuries old, and the sights, sounds, and smells transport one to an imaginary medieval world. The dyeing pits for leather and textiles located on one side of the market continue to function today, not unlike they might have been in the time of Maimonides. The house in which the Maimon family lived today has been converted into an Asian restaurant known as Che Maimonides. As you walk through the market, you can see from a camel's head to lentils for the family dinner, and from modern-day electronics to collectible antiques. The hundreds and hundreds of stalls lining the labyrinth of walkways of the market offer almost anything that a person might want. It was here in Fez that Maimonides began writing about Judaism as he understood it from his fusion of Arabic and Jewish education. In the Arab lands today, Maimonides is still widely considered and quoted as an important Arab scholar. Maimonides encouraged people to develop their human skills and sensitivities by cultivating critical thinking and reason in accordance with the systems of nature. He trusted order and moderation, and he thought that through the beauty and harmony of the universe, we could become aware of the divine existence. He saw Judaism not as a religion of history and great events, like the Exodus and the giving of the law on Mount Sinai, but as a rational religion based on natural systems, which were the creation of God. He laid the foundation for the religion of rationality and enlightenment that would come centuries later. 5 years after the Maimon family arrived to Fez, religious persecution drove him from that city, and Maimonides, his brother David, and their father traveled to Israel. But there was no mention of the mother. Some sources say that she had already passed away. They arrived to Israel between the Second and the Third Crusades, and the Arab armies were threatening the Crusader kingdom. There was turmoil in the land, and it seems to have been too much for them, and after 1 year they moved to Egypt, settling in Fustat, which had a significant Jewish population. Maimonides became a physician in the court of Sultan Saladin. He completed his great works, such as the Guide for the Perplexed and the Mishnah Torah, while working full-time as a physician during the day and being the head of the Jewish community. Maimonides would become recognized and honored as one of the great Jewish scholars of all time. He lived the next decades in Egypt until his death in 1204 at the age of 66.